Okay, well, welcome to the sewing portion of making the hidden PUL trainers. So last we left off, I was ironing on my interfacing. So now I did that, but I found out with the cheap underwear, you get the iron on the elastic, it melts it. So be very careful with that. I ended up spending time cleaning my iron because of it. Anyways, and so here's my serger. I have a Baby Lock Imagine. So for me, it's does self-tension. So for those who need to adjust their tension, you may want to play around, find out what works the best for you. But for me, I am going to start pinning it all together. Or not pinning it, clipping it. I have lovely little clips. Yay! I love these things. So I'll show you the first one, and then I'll do the rest off camera so we can all come back together. So like I said, I'm folding that in half. And since PUL does not fray, I do not need to do a stay stitch since I am going to be serging it. So I will now clip that. Clip here. And up here, fold it in. And we will now clip up here. Okay, voila, all clipped. Now I am going to do the rest of them off camera, and I'll see you again in a moment. Okay, well, welcome back. This is the one I pinned right before I paused. So now we will sew it up. And as I mentioned, if you don't have a serger, what you would do is you would just do a straight stitch on your regular sewing machine and do a zigzag or some sort of finishing seam to finish it off, so that way it doesn't unravel and it stays a little more sturdy. But if you have a serger, just serge away. And don't forget the tail. That is very important. Now, some people choose to use fray check or fray stop, whatever it's called. I'm not sure the name of it because I don't use it, because most of the stuff I started serging was soakers. So I have a double-eye needle, and this is what I use. Now, there's two ways of doing it. One, I will show you both ways. One way is you will just feed the end of your tail right into the needle, which most of the time is easy, except when I'm trying to show. And then I will just put it right here in the seam, and I'm just going to feed it until the needle comes out the other end. Voila! Now it comes through, the rest of the tail is tucked in there. The other option is you feed the needle all the way through, put the tail in there, and then just pull it through. Voila, nice and neat. Took care of my tails. And I've already done this to all the others, so off camera. So that way, see, we are all now ready to go with this. Now, the only thing I have left is my little soaker area. So I started clipping that together off camera, and I left one side so you can see how I'm doing it. Do it up here to make sure I have it in the camera view. But yeah, I'm just clipping these on, and I love using these clips, especially with PUL and using my serger, because with pins, you're poking holes in the PUL. I hate that. Needless to say, I'm a klutz. I always end up drawing blood whenever I sew with pins. No matter how careful I am, that's just what happens. And I don't like bleeding on my project. And also, pins are not good when using a serger because it can kill the blade. So I am just going to serge this, and I am going to cut off a lot of extra, because as you saw earlier when we were laying it out, I didn't give myself a lot of seam allowance. which, like I mentioned, if you're not using a serger, you would use a straight seam on your sewing machine and then zigzag or whatever edging stitch you choose to use on the edge. So as my serger is cutting off the extra, if you're not using a serger and you're using a sewing machine, you want to cut off that extra first or after you do your straight stitch, because you will not have the serger to do it. So I just wanted to show a little bit of how much extra is coming off. So I will do this seam, and because I'm cutting off so much extra, I'm not turning my corners, I'm just sewing off. See, now I have a lot that came out underneath the PUL. I'm now just going to go right through. It does take more time turning my tails at the end, but it does, for me, it works a lot better. Otherwise, if you do want to do the corners, you can do it. I would just, how I do my corners is I sew as far as I can. I trim to where I want the knife to cut, and then I turn that. So if you want, I will do that seam next just to show you. And I want the knife to cut along here. I always have a pair of scissors next to my serger for just such reasons. These tend to be like everything scissors, so they're not as sharp as they should be. Get my little applique scissors because these are nice and sharp. As you can tell, most of my sewing scissors tend to have springs in it. I love that little fact. Okay, back to that. Now I'm going to sew right to the edge. And for those who are not familiar with serger, when you pull up, it loosens the tension, so now you have room to move your threads around. So I just pull those threads just a little and move it right around to where I cut is now right inside the blade. And I will put this down. Let me move the camera a little bit so you can see exactly what I did. See, so now I have the little bit I cut off down here. You can see that's a little bit I cut off, and now inside I have my seam here, and then I'm just about to sew here. But make sure to put the foot back down before you start sewing, otherwise you will not get a good seam. Voila! I will pause this and pick you up again when I have finished sewing this soaker.